5 healthy breakfast foods that may be raising sugar and hardening your arteries. Most people think breakfast is where they make their best decisions. They skip the donuts, they avoid the fast food. They choose the foods with words like whole grain, low fat, heart healthy, natural, or made with fruit. And that is exactly why this becomes dangerous. Because some of the breakfast foods people trust the most are not helping them the way they think. They are not necessarily junk food in disguise. They are worse than that. They are foods with a health halo strong enough to stop people from asking the one question that actually matters. What is this food doing to my blood sugar, my insulin response, and my blood vessels after I eat it? Here is what the research keeps showing. High glycemic breakfasts produce larger post-meal glucose and insulin rises than lower glycemic breakfasts, and postprandial glucose spikes are not a trivial side issue. They are increasingly treated as part of cardiovascular risk biology because they can impair endothelial function. And endothelial dysfunction is one of the earliest vascular changes that precedes atherosclerosis. That is the real story hiding behind the phrase hardening your arteries. And before I go any further, let me make one thing clear. None of the foods I am about to show you are poison. Some of them can absolutely fit into a healthy diet. The problem is not that they exist. The problem is that many people eat them daily, in oversized portions, in sweetened or ultra-processed forms, while thinking they are protecting their heart. Meanwhile, the American Heart Association and CDC both warn that added sugars commonly hide in foods like sweetened yogurts, breakfast cereals, bars, granola, and instant oatmeal. And the CDC says too much added sugar contributes to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. I'm going to walk you through 5 of the biggest offenders. And the first one is the one people defend the hardest. 1. Fruit juice. Even the 100% kind people look at a glass of orange juice and see fruit. Their body often sees something else, a fast-delivered sugar load without the fiber structure that usually slows fruit down. That does not make 100% fruit juice identical to soda. It does mean it is easier to drink a lot of sugar very quickly, especially at breakfast, and easier to spike glucose than if you had eaten whole fruit instead. Observational evidence has linked pure fruit juice intake with cardiovascular disease, though the overall certainty is still mixed and weaker than it is for sugary soft drinks. This is the first breakfast illusion people need to break. The label says 100% juice, so the brain assumes 100% healthy. But blood sugar does not read labels emotionally. It reads delivery speed, fiber absence, and dose. And once you understand that, the morning glass of juice starts looking less like protection and more like dessert in liquid form. 2. Sweetened yogurt cups. This one fools almost everybody because yogurt has real nutritional value. Protein, calcium, fermented dairy, a strong health reputation. And that is exactly why sweetened yogurt is so effective at hiding in plain sight. The American Heart Association specifically lists sweetened yogurts as a common source of added sugars. And the CDC warns that protein bars or yogurt can look healthy while still carrying high amounts of added sugar. The trap is not yogurt itself. The trap is the version that has been turned into a dessert while keeping the wellness branding. Especially the low-fat, fruit-on-the-bottom light versions that remove fat then lean harder on sweetness and flavoring to keep people buying them. That is where people make the biggest mistake. They think they are choosing a heart-friendly breakfast, when they may be choosing a sweetened dairy snack that behaves more like a sugar vehicle than they realize. 3. Granola. Granola is one of the most misunderstood foods in the breakfast aisle. It looks healthy because it contains oats, nuts, seeds, maybe dried fruit, maybe even words like organic or ancient grains. But the CDC now explicitly lists granola among the everyday foods that are frequently sweetened with sugar, honey, or other added sugars. That means the very food people buy to eat clean can quietly become one of the sweetest parts of the morning. And granola has a second problem people miss: density. It is easy to underestimate the portion, easy to overpour, and easy to pair with other sweet breakfast foods like flavored yogurt, dried fruit, or juice. That is how one healthy breakfast turns into a stacked sugar event. A little sweet here, a little sweet there, and suddenly the meal is doing exactly what the person was trying to avoid. 4. Flavored instant oatmeal packets. Now this one needs nuance, because oats themselves are not the enemy. In fact, oats as a category have strong evidence for improving cardiometabolic markers. And oat intake has been associated with better insulin-related outcomes in randomized trials and meta-analyses. So if you hear me say instant oatmeal and think I am attacking oats, that is not what I am saying. What I am saying is that flavored instant oatmeal packets are often a very different product from plain, less processed oats. The CDC specifically flags instant oatmeal as a place where added sugars hide, and reviews on breakfast glycemic index show that lower GI breakfasts produce meaningfully lower post-meal glucose and insulin responses than higher GI breakfasts. Food processing also changes oat structure and glycemic behavior. So when oats are finely processed, sweetened, and turned into a fast breakfast packet, you are no longer getting the same metabolic profile as a bowl of minimally processed oats. That is why this food is so deceptive. People think, I had oatmeal. But what actually matters is which oatmeal, how processed, and how much sugar was added before you ever opened the packet. 5 breakfast cereals and healthy breakfast bars. This might be the biggest category of all because it hides behind words people trust automatically. Whole grain, fiber, multigrain, heart healthy, made with oats, energy bar, protein breakfast bar. The American Heart Association specifically lists breakfast cereals and bars as common sources of added sugars, and the CDC's diabetes guidance warns that breakfast cereals are frequently sweetened. And here is the deeper problem. A product can be technically made with whole grains and still be highly processed, heavily sweetened, and very easy to overeat. Large prospective cohort work continues to link higher ultra-processed food intake with cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, and related outcomes. Even though the exact risk varies by category and study design, that does not prove every cereal box is harmful. It does mean that health branding is not the same thing as metabolic protection. So when someone starts the day with sweet cereal, sweet milk, maybe a breakfast bar on the side, and calls it a light, healthy breakfast, the body may be experiencing it very differently from the marketing story. Now here is where all 5 foods connect. Fruit juice, sweetened yogurt, granola, flavored instant oatmeal, healthy-looking cereals and bars. Different packaging, same pattern. They all leverage the health halo. They all make sugar easier to underestimate. And they all increase the risk that breakfast becomes a high glycemic, high added sugar event, instead of a stable metabolic start to the day. That matters because repeated glucose spikes are increasingly treated as part of cardiovascular risk biology, not just a diabetes conversation. This is the part I want to say very carefully. I am not telling you that one bowl of granola ruins your arteries. I am telling you that the pattern matters. Repeated postprandial hyperglycemia has been described as a driver of endothelial dysfunction, oxidative stress, and inflammatory signaling that may contribute to atherosclerosis progression over time. That is the long game danger, not one breakfast. A breakfast pattern repeated for years. So what should replace these foods? Not fear, precision, whole fruit instead of juice, plain yogurt instead of heavily sweetened cups, less sweet, less processed oat or cereal options instead of sugar-heavy packets. Breakfasts where protein, fiber, and intact food structure do more of the work. The goal is not to create a joyless breakfast. The goal is to stop mistaking sweetened convenience foods with good branding for metabolic medicine. Here is the summary of what matters most. 1. The phrase hardening your arteries is best understood here as repeated glucose spike and endothelial dysfunction risk, not instant plaque from one meal. 2. 100% fruit juice is not the same thing as whole fruit and can deliver sugar rapidly without the fiber structure that slows whole fruit down. Observational evidence links pure fruit juice with cardiometabolic risk, though the evidence is less certain than it is for sugary soft drinks. 3. Sweetened yogurts, granola, instant oatmeal, breakfast cereals, and breakfast bars are all specifically named by major health organizations as common places where added sugars hide. 4. Lower glycemic breakfasts produce lower post-meal glucose and insulin responses than higher glycemic breakfasts, which is one reason the healthy label alone is not enough. 5. The danger is not one breakfast. It is the repeated breakfast pattern that keeps generating unnecessary sugar spikes while the person thinks they are eating for heart health.